lived in the suburbs. Should I start over now that they're recording?
Sorry about that. Yeah, if you'd like to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so hi, I'm Nicole. So, some background for me. I grew up in Austin, Texas. Lived in San Antonio for 4 years for undergrad. I studied music. And then moved here to Brooklyn, where I live, to go to NYU to study music again, composition. Did my master's there. And yeah, during the process, I moved from living in the suburbs to like in Bushwick. It was a very chaotic transition. Went through a lot of stuff. I had, struggled a lot with like just kind of general depression, anxiety growing up. But I always knew there was something else going on, but I didn't really have kind of a word for it. But yeah, that first, I think this. So that kind of changed a lot of things for me. I started to go to there was like this group at NYU for like the autistic students. So I was going to group with them, and it was great. It's just, hearing like kind of the same experiences and stories like reflected back on me was like really sort of life changing. So yeah, that really changed my life, just learning I was autistic. And yeah, I graduated. And can y'all still hear me? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Hello?
can hear you perfectly. My
Okay,
connection might
cool.
be going in and out a little bit, so sorry about
You're
that.
good.
But oh, jeez. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And sorry if my connection goes in and out a little
You're
bit, but I
fine.
I see it uploading on the captions over here. Amazing. And so your experience over or while you were at NYC or NYU really influenced who you decided you wanted to be as a community builder. But could you share a little bit about some of the decisions that you made while you were at NYU?
So you said, can you share a little bit about, and then it cut out. What was the last part?
Oh, sorry, about those like
You're
decisions
muted, by the
related.
way.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I'll switch over devices so there won't be any more issues like this, y'all. Sorry.
you're good.
But I was curious if you made any decisions while you were at NYU that kind of formalized who you wanted to be as a community builder.
Oh, yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know I was going to be doing this when I moved here. I was kind of my experience in grad school and undergrad definitely like influenced how I think about like running the nonprofit. Like I studied composition, and I this is like kind of experimental like classical music stuff. So I definitely learned a lot, or like practice a lot of like kind of thinking about new ways to do stuff, being open-minded, being very like experimental, which I think is definitely needed for like running any organization. Just that kind of mindset of like creativity and like trying new things and being open-minded. So a lot of that like helped and led into like the nonprofit work that I do now. But yeah, again, like this sort of was a hard pivot into something different. So yeah, it's definitely a transition. And there's also like, I was, like I said, in that group at NYU with the other autistic students. And so I did learn a lot of just like listening to people's stories and like kind of how they run the group there and at NYU. And the person who runs the group at NYU is also on our board now. So like I'm still, in connection with him and learn a lot from him. So yeah, that was definitely really helpful having that connection in starting the group. So yeah.
That's amazing. So you kind of took a lot of those learnings from your experience at NYU and were able to disseminate those. And I love that you became a board member too. That's really special. Was there a specific moment when you realized that you wanted to be building community, or was it kind of this existed at NYU and I want it to exist more broadly?
Yeah, after I graduated, I like was wondering like, can I still go to the like meetings even though I'm not an NYU student? And I don't know if I directly asked him that, but I kind of assumed like I probably should not be still going to these NYU student like autistic like meetings or whatever. But yeah, I graduated and I was still trying to find that sort of sense of community and be around other autistic people. And there's not a lot out there. I mean, now that I've been like running the nonprofit for a bit, I've learned of like other groups, but there really is sort of a lack of like communities and like supportive groups for autistic adults. And a lot were also like, I graduated 2022, and I know COVID had like really hurt a lot of like different community groups and stuff. But yeah, so I couldn't really find much out there. And I was not thinking about like starting a whole organization when I did this, but I just went on Meetup and like created a group for autistic adults and posted like, let's go hang out in the park. and I didn't know if anyone was going to show up, honestly. But yeah, I hosted the event, and there was like 20 or 30 people there for the first event, and I'm just like, okay, this is strange. I didn't do any promotion, just put it on the meetup website, and yeah, a lot of people came. A lot of people told me they were looking for something like this. So yeah, it was really just like kind of on a whim, like I'm trying to find other autistic people to hang out with, and yeah, and now we're here. So yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing that you kind of allowed yourself to explore through that process and also like pull in different folks. It sounds like at what point did you start pursuing having something like a board or people who could kind of guide you along the process?
I do remember there was a specific moment. I think it was like our fifth ever event or something. We threw a Halloween party, and it sort of got out of control. Not in like a bad way, but like there was just so many people there. I was like on the verge of having a meltdown. Like it was very overcrowded. And like I had to, that was the first time I had to cut off RSVPs because like too many people were like signing up to stuff. And I think at that point, like I was like, okay, there's a huge need for this, and I'm not capable on my own just running all these events by myself. Like I realized it would be great if there was sort of more structure for this, more like yeah, like an actual organization or group of people running these events, not just me. Something that could like sustain beyond myself. So like if I couldn't run events anymore, if I didn't want to run events, like this community will keep going. So it was that moment when I was like, okay, like maybe it'd be good to try to find some other folks to help make this bigger.
I mean, it sounds like it was a moment that came a little bit from some anxiety, but
Yeah.
hopefully it was a little bit exciting to say like, okay, now I'm at a point where I can bring on more folks. Is there a story with like founding board member, or how did you decide like what direction you wanted to go in?
Well, I think after that is when I started to do some research into like how we were going to structure this group. At first I was thinking like, I could just find other people to host events and have it be kind of, like a chill meetup group. But I think I personally have the tendency to like, what's the word? Just be extra. I don't know how to say it. Like, it's kind of, okay. I just reached out to some kind of more involved community members, people who I thought might be more experienced in like this kind of stuff or just would be interested in being on a board. I reached out to people and put together like a nonprofit board. And I think it was a year after I started the meetup group is when we officially became like a nonprofit.
Oh, that's so I'm so so
I mean, a lot of what this nonprofit is and how we started was just based on like need, so what the community has been asking for. So like initially we just started doing social events, and that's really still the bulk of what we do is like different social stuff, small stuff like picnics, like how we started, or kind of larger stuff, partnerships, art stuff. But yeah, that's been kind of the bulk of what we've been doing is social events, and that's just based on like demand. Like we have a lot of members, our events fill up really fast, so just trying to do more of that since it's really what people want. And same thing with like kind of the other stuff we've been doing, like education, workshops, and like advocacy and stuff like that. It's really been around feedback and demand from folks. I think the first ever workshop we did was employment, actually, because a lot of people had been sharing in our community like, I'm really struggling to find employment, struggling to find a job. I don't know, sort of how to network, how to get started. So we put together like a small workshop. I reached out to someone who I thought would be good at leading that event. So yeah, that's how we started doing workshops, is just asking community members like what is needed, what would be helpful to y'all. Same thing with like kind of advocacy. What are some issues in like your life or in the community that you think would be useful if we did something about them? So yeah, it's really just kind of demand is driven like our programming. I'm not sure if I answered your whole question. I'm sorry, I kind of rambled a bit, but
no, my gosh, that was so perfect, actually. I feel like you answered it also in a way that feels so. The only word that comes to mind is wholesome. Like, I think there are so many, and I'm also in the event space and also over here at Mentra, we host so many events. I feel like there's this hesitancy or rush to know what it is that your user base wants, but not necessarily, or like a hesitancy even to like ask those types of questions. So I feel like it's really one reassuring that you're asking those questions and having those conversations, but also it just speaks to your ability to build community that I just think is phenomenal. So I wanted to say that before we moved into the next question. Yeah. And James
First started, but it's a mix of things. Like donations from community members, of course, has been a big thing, especially when we're trying to like expand both like members like directly like our like autistic community members, but also friends and family and stuff like that. So that was the first main thing, asking for donations. We started like a supporters program, which helped as well, like kind of getting recurring donations, and members get like perks for that and stuff. Grants, of course, because we're a smaller nonprofit, like grant-based stuff like that. In-kind donations have been like huge, especially with all the different like programs we do. So we've gotten donations of like Broadway tickets, for example. So like we'll go to like plays together as a group. We've gotten donations of supplies, so people will, like we have an Amazon wish list that we post, and people will like send us art supplies and stuff like that, which has been like really amazing to help kind of bring those expenses down. So yeah, it's a mix of stuff, and we've definitely been trying to like sort of diversify our like income streams and stuff like that as we've gotten bigger. But yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. Going back to some of the community building, and I'm sure funds is required for a lot of that, community versus, yes.
Yeah, I think the main thing, just trying to keep it like sort of like a community and like grassroots feel, is making sure that we are run by the community. That's been a big thing like since we were founded. There are a good amount of autism nonprofits in New York City. I don't think any of them off the top of my head are like autistic run. There are very few autistic run nonprofits, and that's been a big thing, just making sure that like all of our volunteers or board members are like one staff person. We're all autistic. And not just that, but like people who are volunteers are also people who have just like been in our group for a bit and like been to other events. So that's kind of helped keep it like, community centered. So it doesn't feel like it's just a bunch of random board members pulling strings on a community they're not like actually in. And then of course, just making sure we're incorporating like feedback from our community in a variety of ways, like surveys. We do like 4 times a year, like community forums where people will just like give feedback in like a Zoom session. Before we do like any sort of new stuff, any big changes, we're always asking community members, trying to like have them hold us accountable on stuff. I definitely think that is huge, like just getting feedback.
In some of those, and I'm not sure, it's always like, okay, we've got, what we want to do to improve. Has that kind of been a sentiment that you have felt after those, or what has been kind of feeling?
Yeah, I mean, like it's always hard because like sometimes we'll get feedback that's like really really good, but it's also like this is going to take a lot of like time to restructure the way we do things. But that's, it's some of that is like the best feedback, and so like yeah, it's always, I think, like I said, with sort of the background in music and the arts and stuff, of like being open-minded and trying to like be considerate of like all the different ways there are to do things, and like different experiences, and trying to keep an open mind when like having these community forums is really important.
That's amazing, and I imagine that creates for a culture where people can feel like they can maybe come to you and share even outside of those spaces. Could you share with us a few other strategies that you might have to kind of get closer to your community and foster some of that trust?
Yeah, and you mentioned like people, like having people be comfortable coming up to me outside of sessions. That's actually been difficult as we've gotten larger as a community, because now I think we have like 1,000 something members. And when we first started and it was just a meetup group, people were always coming up to me, like telling me stuff, asking me questions, giving me suggestions, which I loved. But also like, as the group got bigger, it was just like a lot of people coming up to me, which I still didn't mind. But I think now that we've gotten bigger and that we have the structure of like a nonprofit, I feel like people are a little bit more hesitant coming up to me or just like, other staff and stuff, just because like people don't want to bother us, or like people are less familiar with us as they like join a new community. So trying to have like different people that group members can talk to, like different volunteers, trying to have different ways for people to talk to us. So like in our like community guidelines and stuff, there's a link to do like office hours and chat through like Discord DMs, chat through email. We have like a reporting thing on our Discord so people can like press a button and it'll open up a thread with moderators. Just trying to create like a bunch of different avenues for people to contact us, because there's some things that like, people who are like really active on the Discord, maybe they might be more comfortable with like a reporting form. With people who, maybe not so like tech savvy or not great with emails, might be more comfortable doing like an office hour session. So trying to like find different ways for people to reach out to us has been important, just to make sure that, people can have someone to talk to, even if it's, not a staff person. It could be a volunteer, it could be a board member, whoever, and that it's in a sort of medium that they're comfortable with as well.
That's amazing. And we got a few questions in the chat as well. So there's some curiosity around whether or not you will be expanding outside of New York City in the future.
Maybe. It feels like there's like a never-ending flow of people here. Like there's just so much demand for events. Like I said, we have, I think most months we're doing like 12 to 15 to 18 events, and they all get like filled within like, a couple hours of posting them, which is great. But also like there's just so much more we need to do in the city and so much more people to support. So yes, it would be great to expand, but we need kind of a bigger team for that. So maybe in time, maybe in like 10 years, we'll like make a New Jersey branch or something. I don't know, but
that's exciting. Well, always something to look forward to. We got another question about, so what is the most surprisingly popular support that your organization offers? So you mentioned like job-related events or social events. Have you found like one reception is more enthusiastic than the other?
I don't know, it's kind of a tough question, because like it's funny, the types of events that I don't think would be super popular are like, for example, just simple like let's go to a park and walk around and look at plants. That's something that I didn't realize would be like really popular. But we have a group member who she was like our first volunteer event host, and she has a degree in like horticulture and plant science and stuff. And she started doing these plant walks where she'll go around and like ID different plants in like parks and stuff like that. And when she like introduced the idea to me, I'm like, okay, sure, sounds fun for like one event. And we did it, and I'm like, this is like super fun and like really like, I don't know, it's just so fun watching her being like just nerd out about plants. And we've been doing those like 2 times a month since then. This was like a couple years ago. Those have been really popular, and like it's just really interesting. Like a lot more like kind of niche events like that. Like we'll do like mixed media art, and like that's popular. Or we'll do an event like we did like a writing class, like learning to write kind of like nonfiction and stuff like that. So stuff like that will be really popular, but also like really simple stuff like, let's just go and play board games. Like that kind of stuff is popular. So yeah, really anything that like people can learn something or like meet new people, we'll find those events fill up like super fast.
That's so exciting. I love those like unconventional or maybe things like events that you wouldn't find on like a app like Meetup or Luma, that kind of like get your mind thinking a little bit out of the box. That's really exciting. So you kind of answered this, but I want to go a little bit more in depth with it. So what role would you say creativity and arts, and maybe even your love for music, what role would you say that plays in community building and engagement?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of art stuff, and I think part of it is just because I love art and I host a lot of the events. And so like I just kind of naturally gravitate towards doing art stuff. But I think like art and really anything creative or stuff you can kind of do with your hands, like I think those types of events are great for like autistic and neurodivergent folks. Because I found that like when we've done events like, let's just go to a cafe and like get lunch together or something, those events can be kind of difficult, especially for new people, to just like connect with others and like find something to talk about. But like, when there's something like creative or something to sort of center the art event around, like art or like painting or really anything, those events are great because like, you know, you can kind of, again, like engage in something and have something to chat about and connect with people over. Like doing our art classes every year has been great, and then having the exhibition to like showcase the works off to everyone, like that's amazing because you can like, you know, see progress and see like growth in the community and meet people's like friends and family. That's always really fun, like meeting people's parents. So yeah, like creativity and art like definitely play a really big part in just like, you know, kind of fostering that sense of community in our group.
Oh, that must be so special and exciting too to get to be a part of that, like showing up. It's almost like a show and tell, but obviously we're adults and we get to like re-express that and like relive it a little bit if we missed
Yeah.
out on it.
I
Like,
mean, we do show and tell events too, so those are really fun.
perfect. That's even better. Oh my gosh, how are the show and tell events?
Oh, those are great. We've done kind of a variety of different show and tell type events. Like I remember the first of those events we've done like virtually like a special interest showcase where people like will kind of rant about like whatever their special interest is. So that or just like a traditional show and tell. We've done those before. But yeah, that was always great.
Oh, that's so fun. We've been thinking about hosting one over here at Mentra too. So I'll let you know how it goes. Maybe you can come and show one
Yeah,
of you.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually had a question to get to know you a little bit better. Joe was curious what your favorite music genre is and if you have or if you play any instruments.
Oh, yeah. So I studied like contemporary classical music. Wouldn't say it's my favorite genre though. I listen to a lot of like R&B, neo soul, jazz, electronic music, sometimes folk, kind of all over the place. But yeah, definitely been listening to a lot of like neo soul recently. I play piano. That's what I studied in school, and voice. So I did like classical, like opera singing stuff. It's been a while since I've done it, so don't ask me to sing. And I played guitar a little bit. But yeah, and this, my shirt it says Austin on it because there's a lot of live music in Austin, so yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Have you been able to host any events around piano or singing
Yes.
opera?
Yeah,
Yes.
we've done, not singing, no. We've done some music events. Like we did like an instrument building workshop. We've done a couple of those. We've done like sound art, which is kind of more experimental. Actually, next month I'm hosting like a intro piano music theory class, so that'll be fun.
That's so exciting. Wait, you could build out a whole university just from the things that
Maybe.
you've learned. Yeah, that's awesome. Nicole, what advice would you give other leaders looking to start nonprofits centered around neurodivergent communities?
I think like this our nonprofit wouldn't exist without like the demand for it and the community, because like I said, I just posted a random like meetup event and people just started flooding in. Didn't do any advertising. We still don't do any advertising for our organization other than like some programs and stuff where like, you know, we might be doing something kind of different than our general like social events. But in general, we don't do any promotion. This really just exists because there is a huge demand for it. So I think that's really important to consider like whenever you're starting, or if you're considering starting like a nonprofit or an organization or really anything like that, is that it's really a lot of work, and it's difficult to get something started unless you have some sort of support for it. And for our organization, we had like just community support. For some people, like, you know, if you get a grant for something, or if you just have a lot of like family support for starting an organization, that can help you get started. But in general, it's just really hard to start a nonprofit unless you just have some sort of support there. So that's something to consider. And I remember when I was like Googling like how to start a nonprofit, the main advice I was getting was just like, don't do it. Because it's like really, it's a lot of work and it's like a commitment. It's like, you know, you have this thing that you have to take care of for years and years, like a kid essentially. So that's something to consider. It's going to be a lot of work. Part of that advice was like, you know, consider helping another nonprofit or another organization in sort of the area that you want to start your organization. So that might be something to consider if you're like, you know, thinking of starting a nonprofit, to like volunteer for another organization doing something similar, can kind of learn more about the community, see what's sort of needed, and kind of go from there. So yeah.
So exciting to get to see too, like the organization grow. But I can imagine you've been doing this work for 3 years now, you said?
Uh,
Doesn't stop it. You continue going, which is that can be exciting for some, but I could see how it looks different for others. Within that landscape, how do you see the future for autistic adults, specifically in New York City, changing over the next few years?
yeah, I mean, like I said, we just kind of have sort of a never ending flow of people. So definitely see us growing bigger. I feel like with our nonprofit in general, it's definitely been, well, the first like year was a lot of sudden growth, but now we're kind of settling more into like more slow growth, bringing on a team and growing kind of like larger and larger. So at least for our organization, like I definitely see that growth continuing and hopefully, building capacity to serve more of the community. But for like just the general autistic community, I mean, like it's great that there's a lot more sort of awareness of like what autism is, what autism looks like in adults, so that more people are like, pursuing diagnosis or, identifying as autistic. So I can see a lot more people being interested in community, trying to start their own things. Other organizations doing more for the autistic community. Like I've seen a lot more of like sensory friendly days and stuff like that, in like, museums or like shows and stuff like that. So I see a lot of more of that happening. But yeah, I think just more growth in our community, more kind of awareness of our communities is a good thing.
Yay. Oh, well, I'm so excited for 2026 and to see all the amazing. I mean, I live in New York City, so I feel like I fortunately do reap a lot of the benefits of being so close to an organization like yours and having access to community. But what would you say to folks who might be a little bit more rural or might not necessarily have the community, maybe even looking back to who you were before you built out Autistic Adults NYC? Like, how were you feeling and what could you tell that version of yourself if you were to go back in time?
Yeah, it's difficult, like not having that community. And we've gotten like emails and stuff from people who live outside of New York, like far outside in different states and stuff, saying that they're trying to find something similar or if we know of any other similar organizations. And there is some stuff out there, but it's definitely difficult if you're not living in, a large city like New York City. But there are, people around, there are autistic folks. It's just a matter of finding them. Meetup is a great place. I haven't really gone on Meetup within the last like year or so since we sort of left the platform.
But just a thought, it's exciting.
I know that the Autistic Self Advocacy Network, they their affiliates are more like advocacy focused, so they might not do a ton of events, but some of them do a good amount of stuff.
Might be worthwhile to share. We can share that in our Discord as well, just so that folks can reach as many resources as possible. Sure. Thank you. All right. And then I have a few other questions, y'all. Feel free to keep dropping your questions in the chat. We're loving seeing those come through. Getting into 2026, because it's literally right around the corner, like 2 days away. Are there any upcoming projects, initiatives, events? I know you said someone in the chat also, or James in the chat mentioned something like a beatbox. I don't know if that's of interest, or could you share a little bit about what you got coming up?
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff planned. Like I mentioned, we have our art program coming up from January to March. So we're doing like 8 classes and then an exhibition in like late March. We have that planned. We also, of course, Pride Day again. We're doing that. Hopefully, Steph, you can come. Yeah, it's a great event because, I mean, there, of course, has been a lot of like negative stuff around autism, just in general, but a lot recently. So it's great to have an event where we can just, be out and open and happy and kind of spin the spectrum, I think. They are based in Texas and they visited New York City and we partnered and did like a DJ class with them. So sometimes we'll get like emails like that. So if we have a professional beatboxer who can reach out, we can set something up. But I will not be teaching that because I don't know how. But yeah, that's just some stuff we have for next year.
That's so exciting. And I'm so excited to hear that you're going to be hosting the Pride event. That was so amazing, y'all. I know most of us on here aren't in New York City, but if you're close enough to make the trip out, it is absolutely worth it. You had such amazing speakers, passionate folks, people who are delivering poetry or singing or giving a speech. Like, just really, truly an amazing community. We also got another message if there are any events that you might know of in other communities in Toronto or around Canada.
I'm not sure. I know that ASN has some like international affiliates if you check out that page, but off the top of my head, I can't think of anything.
Awesome. Well, totally fair. We have that link now, so we can circulate that on our end. But I guess kind of in closing and sharing with our audience, if you have one key takeaway about what it looks like to really build community-led advocacy networks and events and like being an impactful nonprofit, what would that piece of advice be or takeaway?
Or they kind of start in your head, but they have to exist within the community. So it's really important to just see what the community needs, connect with folks, find support where you can. One thing I didn't mention with starting a nonprofit is that, like, I mean, even if you study kind of like, if you have a degree in like business or sort of like more administration stuff, there's always going to be stuff you don't know how to do. You're always going to need help from folks in, areas you don't have background in. And when you're starting a nonprofit, especially if you don't have any like financial support, you can't necessarily pay a lawyer or pay an accountant to like help you do stuff. So it's really important to connect with folks, find volunteers who might have experience, find people who are really interested or really care about whatever your nonprofit is centered around, seeing how they can support with, whatever background they have. Just, making sure that you are listening to folks and just connecting with the community to see where you can find help to start your organization.
I love that. You're always like pulling those community strings as much as you can. And I feel like that is also how people feel supported and included and a part of what you're building. And I think that was the sentiment that I felt as well. So thank you so much, Nicole. For folks that want to stay connected, continue learning more about you and all the amazing things that you're doing, both you individually, but also NYC, like events and all of those exciting spaces. I guess I'm curious how they can stay connected with you.
Oh yeah, y'all can just reach out. I can put my email in the chat. But if you're in the New York City area and you want to join us, you can just go to our webpage. It's free to join. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm sure I spelled this right. Yeah, always happy to help. I sometimes will get emails from people like, in Ohio or Kansas or whatever, just like, I want to do something similar in like my town, and like I will help out as much as I can. Obviously I can't like start an organization over there, but I always love to help people kind of create similar communities in their area. So yeah, if you're inspired to do something, feel free. Yeah, I can send my LinkedIn too. I'm like barely on LinkedIn, but I'm happy to connect there. I don't even remember what. If you look me up, Nicole Russell on LinkedIn, there's a picture of me. You should be able to find me. I can't. Oh wait, here it is. Okay.
I just dropped your name in the chat so that folks know. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And thank you, most of all, for just truly being someone that we can model community after. And your experience, your care, your dedication, your kindness to the community. I think it's so impactful, so needed. And I really appreciate you for being a beacon of that and showing us all how to lead with empathy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for the couple of group members that I see who attended. I appreciate y'all.
This is amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nicole. I hope you have an amazing new year and keep warm.
All right, you too.
All right, thanks. Bye.